Good evening. Thank you for joining me here on the Royal House of Amun Nesatawi. Tonight's show is going to be about the Legislative Chamber, Chapter 5 of the Constitution. I am your host, Ramses Khufu El Amun Nesatawi, descendant of Pharaoh Ramses III of the 20th dynasty of ancient Kemet and his rightful heir to his Kemetic throne. Before I begin, I'd like to thank everyone who supported our cause. We will establish the United Kingdom of Kemet in the Halab Triangle, in which the Egyptians called it the Halab Triangle, but we call it the United Kingdom of Kemet. It is our territory and it is rightfully ours. We will follow international law to obtain this land and establish a Kemetic nation. It hasn't been a Kemetic nation since ancient Kemet. We will establish a modern Kemetic nation with the help of all of you. We shall succeed. But let's begin with the Legislative Chambers, Chapter 5. This is from Articles 58 to Article 89. Article 58. The Parliament shall be composed of a Chamber of Deputies and a Senate. No one can be simultaneously a member of both Chamber of Deputies and the Senate. The two chambers shall meet at the beginning and at the end of each session in the circumstances set forth in the Articles 72 and 73, upon the call of the Prime Minister and upon such other occasions as may be determined by the chambers. The President of the Senate shall preside at all joint meetings of the chambers. Article 59. The regular sessions of Parliament shall convene on the 23rd day of the month of each year in the capital of the United Kingdom of Kemet, and shall continue to the first day of the month of 8th of June until a new Parliament shall be elected and convened in accordance with the present Constitution and the electoral law to be enacted. The two chambers of Parliament as heretofore constituted shall continue to set and shall, in accordance with the provisions and procedures established in Chapter 5 of the present Constitution, exercise the prerogatives and functions and fulfill the responsibilities provided for in respect of Parliament. The first election to the Chamber of Deputies shall be completed within 2 years from the entry in force of the present Constitution and in accordance with the provisions of the electoral law. Article 60. No meeting of either chamber of Parliament shall be closed to the public except upon request by the Prime Minister or upon a decision by a majority vote of the Chamber of Deputies or the Senate to the effect. No joint meeting of the chambers shall be closed to the public except upon request by the Prime Minister or a decision by the majority of each of the chambers to that effect. If, after a question has been declared to be a secret, a member of either chamber makes it known to the public, either in a speech or by the press, or by writings, or in any other way, shall be punished according to the provisions of penal law. Article 61. Neither of the chambers shall commence its deliberations on the first day of any session without the presence of 2/3 of its members, nor continue its deliberations, nor take any vote on any succeeding day of any session without the presence of a majority of its members. At joint meetings on the chambers, the presence of a majority of the members of each chamber shall be required by deliberations and voting. Article 62. If the number of deputies and of senators prescribed in Article 61 is not present on the day designated for the convening of Parliament, or if thereafter either of the chambers or the chambers in joint meetings cannot continue its deliberations, a vote for lack of the required attendance, the members present shall take such measures as may be authorized in the rules of procedures of the respective chambers to compel attendance of a sufficient number of the absent members and their respective presidents. Article 63. Each deputy or senator, before taking his or her seat in the chamber to which he has been elected or appointed, shall take before the king, or if desired by him, before the president of the legislative chamber concerned, an oath of loyalty to the king and to the laws of the United Kingdom of Khemet, and will perform his duties consequently and without fear or favor. Article 64. Each chamber shall determine its own rules of procedure and internal discipline. Article 65. Members of Parliament shall receive salaries determined by law. Any law increasing the salaries of members of Parliament shall be effective only from the date of the election of the next Parliament. Article 66. No action or charge may be brought against any members of Parliament or against any minister appearing by right or upon the invitation of either chamber for words uttered or written statements submitted by him or her at any meeting of either chamber, or any joint meeting of the chambers, or any meeting of any committee of either chamber. Nevertheless, every member of each chamber of Parliament shall be obliged to respect all rules of order, conduct, and procedure adopted by such chamber for the transaction of its business, and shall be subject to disciplinary action on the part of such chamber for violation of such rules. No action or charge may be brought against any person or any newspaper for publication by or under the authority of Parliament or of either chamber thereof, of any report paper, votes, or proceedings of Parliament or either chamber thereof. Article 67. No members of Parliament during a session thereof may be arrested or detained or summoned to answer a criminal charge unless the permission of the chamber of which he or she is a member be obtained, or he or she be arrested in flagrant delicto, and comparable immunity does not apply to civil cases. Article 68. Laws may be proposed to either or both chambers of Parliament. Section A, by the Prime Minister, or Section B, by 10 or more members of either chamber of Parliament, except that any proposal involving an increase in governmental expenditures or a new or increased tax shall first be presented to the Chamber of Deputies. Article 69. All matters in either chamber or in joint meeting of the chambers shall be determined by a vote of most of the members present, except as provided in Article 113. In event of an equal division of votes, the preceding offices shall have a casting vote. Article 70. Every proposal of legislation approved by one chamber of Parliament shall be immediately forwarded through the president thereof to the other chamber. If it is approved by the other without amendments within a period of 2 months, it shall be promptly communicated through the Prime Minister, shall be promulgated as law, or shall be returned by the Prime Minister to the chambers with his observations thereon, or with a new proposal of legislation as provided in Article 73. All laws duly approved by both chambers of Parliament shall be forwarded to the Prime Minister by the Presidents of the Chamber of Deputies or the Senate. If such law shall receive the approval or signature of the King, it shall be published by the Minister of the Pen in the royal press with recital of the affixing of the signature and the great seal of the King. All royal decrees and all ministerial decrees and orders shall be published in the royal press. Article 71. If a proposal of legislation approved by one chamber is not finally acted upon by the other within the aforesaid period of 2 months, the chambers shall meet to discuss the said proposal. If the proposal is approved in such a joint meeting with or without amendments within 30 days, it shall be communicated by the Prime Minister for action in accordance with Article 70. Article 72. If within the aforesaid period of 2 months a proposal of legislation by one chamber is approved by the other with amendments, the said proposal shall return to the first chamber for further consideration. If upon such further consideration it is approved within 30 days by the first chamber with the said amendments, it shall be communicated to the Prime Minister and the King for action in accordance with Article 70. If within 30 days the amendments are not accepted by the first chamber, the chambers shall thereupon meet to discuss the proposal. If in such a joint meeting the proposal is approved with or without amendments within 30 days, it shall thereupon be communicated to the Prime Minister and the King for action in accordance with Article 70. Article 73. If a proposal of legislation approved by one of the chambers is rejected by the other within 2 months after its communication to the other, as provided in Article 72, or if a proposal of legislation is not approved with or without amendments after discussion in joint meeting as provided in Article 71 and Article 72, full reports on the situation shall be promptly communicated to the Prime Minister by the presidents of both chambers of Parliament through the Prime Minister may thereupon cause to be transmitted to both chambers of Parliament his observations in regard to such reports and such proposal of legislation or cause to be transmitted to the chambers a proposal of legislation on the same subject. Article 74. In cases of emergency that arise when the chambers are not sitting, the king may proclaim decrees consistent with the Constitution, which shall have the force of law upon the publication in the royal press, pending a decision on the same by Parliament. To start to that end, the text of each such decree shall be transmitted for consideration to both chambers of Parliament at their first meeting following each such proclamation, if conformably to the provisions of Article 70, 71, or 72 of the present Constitution, Parliament shall approve such decrees. They shall continue in force and shall become law upon publication in the royal press of said approval. If Parliament shall disapprove any such decrees, each such decree shall cease to have force and effect upon the publication in the royal press of such disapproval. Section 2. The Chamber of Deputies, Article 75. The entire territory of the United Kingdom of Khemet, as defined in Article 1 of the Constitution, shall be divided into electoral districts containing as nearly as possible 200,000 inhabitants. The location and limits of each electoral district shall be determined by law, and each such district shall be as regular in shape as circumstances permit. In addition, each county with a population exceeding 30,000 inhabitants shall be entitled to one deputy and additional deputy for each 50,000 inhabitants more than 30,000. Article 76. Each electoral district shall be represented by 2 deputies. Article 77. All Khemetan citizens by birth of 21 years of age or more who are regularly domiciled or habitually present in any electoral district and who possess the qualifications required by the electoral law shall have the right to vote in such electoral district for the candidates from such district as members of the Chamber of Deputies. The system of voting shall be secret and direct. Details of the procedures shall be prescribed by law. Article 78. To be eligible as a deputy, a person must be by birth a Khemetan citizen who, Section A, has reached the age of 25 years. Section B, is a bona fide resident of his or her electoral district, required by the electoral law. Section C, and is not disqualified under any provision of the electoral law. Article 80. Vacancies that may occur in the membership of the Chamber of Deputies shall be filled as provided in the electoral law. Article 81. The President and 2 Vice Presidents of the Chamber of Deputies shall be elected each year from and by members of the Chamber. Article 82. The Chamber of Deputies shall be sole judge of the qualifications and elections of its members. Section 3. The Senate. Article 83. The Senate shall consist of the senators appointed by the King for 6 years. Article 84. The Senate shall be composed of a few persons not exceeding 1/2 of the total number of deputies to be chosen by the King from among those who have by their acts secured the confidence and esteem of the people, and from among those who have served their country and government with distinction. Article 85. To be eligible for appointment as a member of the Senate, a person must be by birth an Khemetan citizen who, Section 8, has reached the age of 35 years, b, is a prince or other dignitary, or a former high government official, or other persons generally esteemed for his character, judgment, and public service, and Section C, is not disqualified under any provisions of the electoral law. Article 86. The senators first appointed by the King, as provided in Article 83, shall immediately after their first meeting be divided into 3 equal groups. The senators of the first group shall be succeeded at the end of the second year by senators appointed in accordance with the provisions of Article 83. Those of the second group at the end of the 4th year, and those of the third group at the end of the 6th year, or 6th year, so that 1/3 be succeeded every second year. Article 87. Senators shall be eligible for reappointment subject to their continued possession of the qualifications set forth in Article 85. Article 88. Vacancies in the membership of the Senate shall be filled by appointments in the matter provided in Article 83. Article 89. The President and the 2 Vice Presidents of the Senate shall be appointed each year by the King from among the senators. So that is Chapter 5 that discussed the legislation of the government, both chambers, the Senate and the chambers of deputies. This is a form of the government that we have, that the legislation branch basically handles the laws of the lands and conducts and create laws that benefit the people and the sovereign state of the United Kingdom of Khemet. Now, the next episode 6 will discuss the judicial powers, chapter 6. So, once again, I thank you all for your support. I really thank you all. Please continue your support. Please, as I mentioned many times before, those of you who live outside of the United States, who live in Africa or the Caribbean or any other place of within the African diaspora, confront your politicians, your traditional leaders, to support our rights to establish the United Kingdom of Kemet in the Halab Triangle, which the Halab Triangle is being occupied by the Egyptians illegally. Communicate that with the Secretary General of the UN. Also communicate with the head of the African Union. Please give us your support, and I thank you in advance. May the righteous hands of Ra be upon you all. Thank you, and be blessed.